Hey worship leaders, do you know that there is a whole dimension of worship that you might actually be missing out on? If you've ever led worship and you felt like you've hit a wall, it could be that you're missing out on the experience of actually touching the throne room of God. The Tabernacle gives us an imagery of the whole worship journey one takes to enter into the presence of God. There is the outer courts, where the brazen altar and the brazen laver is, the holy place that houses the lampstand, the table of showbread, the altar of incense. And behind the veil sits the Holy of Holies, where the manifest presence of God dwells on top of an ark. The brazen altar and the laver was symbolic of things that God did for us. It's the sacrifice that brings justification. It's the washing from the word of God that brings sanctification. In other words, the outer courts represents God's ministry to men. If we were to reflect truthfully, the reality is that most of our worship experience actually stop at the outer courts, where our focus is on what God did for us. Most worship teams, I believe, are built to create an worship experience that centers primarily on the experience of the individual, rather than on the desire and the delight of God alone. We probably don't do this on purpose, but perhaps we've been conditioned largely by a consumeristic attitude that we evaluate the success of our worship services on the outcome of whether people felt ministered to, as opposed to did God get what He wants. We've learned how to minister to people, but lack the ability to actually lead them into ministering to the presence of God. The whole purpose of the outer courts was to prepare His people to go deep into the holy place. So here's my humble encouragement and charge to worship leaders. What if we let people into the throne room where the focus is on ministering to His presence? It's the intimate face-to-face communion with the bread of life, the faithful, consistent fragrance of incense. It's the Isaiah 6 encounter of beholding God in the fullness of His holiness and responding to the worth of Jesus. And remember that our role is not primarily to minister to people, although that is important, but to simply connect with the worship that's happening around the throne of God, and to simply bring and invite the room into the same thing. How do we do this? As worship leaders, I believe we have the responsibility to grow in our calling that God has for us so that we can lead others well and actually to experience it ourselves first. And I want to encourage you to hear more about what our worship leading students have to say about their transformation and to come experience it for yourself.